Napoleon Hill. These 7 signs mean you're secretly on the path to wealth. Most people won't realize they're on the path to wealth until it's too late to accelerate it. But what if I told you that there are 7 hidden signs, subtle clues that Napoleon Hill believed meant you're already aligning with extraordinary success? These signs don't show up in your bank account. They show up in your mindset, your decisions, your relationships. And if you recognize even one of them, then listen closely, because you're not trying to get rich. You're transforming into someone who's destined for it. Part 1, the invisible beginning. Wealth starts from within. When most people think about wealth, their minds instantly jump to the external symbols: mansions, cars, designer clothes, and fat bank accounts. But according to Napoleon Hill, these things are merely the aftershocks of something deeper, something far more powerful, an internal transformation that must happen first. This is the beginning most people never notice. It's silent, invisible, often uncomfortable, but it's also the clearest sign that you are unconsciously entering the stream of wealth creation. And once you're in that flow, the outer success will eventually have no choice but to catch up. 1. The wealth mindset doesn't start with money. Hill never saw money as the origin of wealth. In fact, he repeatedly argued that money is merely a byproduct of a particular mindset, a state of consciousness rooted in clarity, desire, and a deep sense of purpose. That's why many people who win the lottery lose it all in a few years. They receive the fruit of wealth, but not the mental soil needed to sustain it. Conversely, others who come from nothing, with no connections, no education, and no capital, somehow create empires out of thin air. What's the difference? It's not luck, it's mental alignment. It's the inner belief that says, this life I'm in right now is not where I'm staying. Even before the first dollar shows up, your thoughts begin shifting. You no longer see the world the way you used to. You begin questioning your limitations. And most importantly, you begin believing that it's possible. This internal shift is what Napoleon Hill calls the starting point of all achievement, a place that has nothing to do with status, and everything to do with energy, awareness, and mental direction. 2. Discontent is a spiritual compass. One of the earliest, most misunderstood signs that you're on the path to wealth is a growing sense of dissatisfaction. This isn't depression. It's not laziness or nihilism. It's a productive kind of frustration, what Hill referred to as inspired dissatisfaction. It's that gnawing voice in your head that whispers, you're meant for more. There's a better way. This life isn't your final chapter. Most people try to suppress this feeling. Society conditions us to be grateful, settle down, and not ask for too much. But here's the paradox. Every great achievement in history began with a refusal to accept what is. Think about the entrepreneurs who dropped out of college, the artists who left corporate jobs, the single parents who built businesses while raising kids. Every one of them started with a moment of inner defiance, of realizing that the current version of their life no longer fits. Hill believed that this discontent, when paired with a definite purpose, becomes fuel for greatness. It's a sign that your subconscious is rebelling against limitation and reaching for a new identity. This is not a crisis, it's a calling. 3. The shift from external to internal validation. Another early, invisible sign is the moment you stop needing permission. You don't need people to agree with your dreams. You don't need applause. You don't even need validation. Why? Because something has awakened within you, an inner confidence, a conviction that your vision matters, even if no one else sees it yet. Napoleon Hill described this as faith in unseen forces. It's the moment when your belief in the invisible becomes stronger than the evidence of the visible. It's when you stop saying, I'll believe it when I see it, and start saying, I'll see it because I believe it. That shift might sound subtle, but it's massive. Most people are prisoners of their current circumstances. But if you're able to think and act from future-based identity, you're already light years ahead of the majority. You've broken free from the emotional leash of public opinion, and that's where real wealth building begins in freedom. Or you start to see time differently. When you're unconsciously aligning with wealth, Your relationship with time changes. You no longer obsess over quick results. You stop looking for overnight success. You begin to think long-term. Hill believed that wealthy individuals understand the compound effect of thought, energy, and action. They don't just react to life, they plant seeds. They are patient enough to allow those seeds to grow, even if no one else sees what's happening underground. This is one of the biggest invisible signs you begin valuing consistency over intensity. While others are chasing fads, get-rich-quick schemes, and microwave success, you're building mental habits and systems that will stand the test of time. You don't need fireworks, you're focused on foundation. 5. Emotional reactions are replaced with strategic thinking. Have you noticed that you've stopped reacting to every problem with panic? That you no longer spiral emotionally when things go wrong? That instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you start asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That's a sign of spiritual and mental maturity, which Hill considered a prerequisite for wealth. Wealth doesn't come to those who constantly live in fight or flight mode. It comes to those who discipline their emotions, who learn to sit with discomfort, who respond instead of react. This doesn't mean you become numb or cold. It means you become conscious. And when you're conscious, you make better decisions. You delay gratification. You pivot instead of quitting. That's wealth-level thinking. 6. You become obsessed with value, not hustle. Hill warned that hard work without purpose is just busyness. But when your mindset starts shifting toward wealth, you stop equating time with money. You begin focusing on value. You ask yourself, what value can I provide? What problem can I solve? How can I help others get what they want? This is the exact mindset that Hill highlighted in all his interviews with successful people from Andrew Carnegie to Henry Ford. Every one of them focused on creating disproportionate value in exchange for massive reward. You don't get rich because you work harder. You get rich because you serve smarter and you serve people better than anyone else. When you start waking up thinking about value instead of struggle, service instead of survival, that's a flashing sign that your wealth mentality is taking shape. 7. The internal dialogue becomes empowering. Perhaps the most profound and visible sign that you're on the path to wealth is how your self-talk begins to change. Where once your inner voice might have said, "I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes. I've failed too many times." Now, quietly but consistently, it begins to whisper, "I can figure this out. Everything is a lesson. I'm building something meaningful, even if I can't see it yet." This is not toxic positivity. This is mental recalibration. Napoleon Hill calls this process autosuggestion. It's how your subconscious rewires itself based on repeated thoughts and emotional intensity. And when that autosuggestion begins working in your favor, the outer world eventually shifts to match it. It's no longer a matter of if, it's simply a matter of when. Closing reflection for part 1. You might not have $1 million right now. You might still be living paycheck to paycheck. But if you recognize even one of these signs within yourself, if you're beginning to feel restless, intentional, empowered, and focused, you're not behind. You're not failing. You're not stuck. You're transforming. And the transformation always happens on the inside first. Part 2. The power of burning desire when you want it more than anything. In Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill made one of the most iconic declarations in the history of personal development. Desire is the starting point of all achievement, not a hope, not a wish, but a keen, pulsating desire which transcends everything. This statement wasn't poetic fluff. It was a formula, a universal law of success distilled from interviews with more than 500 of the most successful people in the world at the time. Every one of them, Hill found, began with one core trait, a desire so intense, it bordered on obsession. And so, the second sign that you're secretly on the path to wealth is this. You begin to feel a burning desire inside of you. It's not casual, it's not fleeting, it's not dependent on external motivation. It's visceral, it's magnetic. It pulls you forward sometimes against all logic, against all odds. and even when you can't fully explain why. 1. The difference between wanting and burning desire. There's a massive difference between wanting something and desiring it with intensity. Most people want to be rich. They want more freedom, more choices, more control. But what they don't want is to go through the discomfort, discipline, and transformation that wealth requires. A burning desire, by contrast, doesn't just live in your mind, it lives in your nervous system. It keeps you up at night. It speaks to you in quiet moments. It colors your imagination. It shows up as a constant emotional pull toward a future that doesn't exist yet. Hill wrote that true desire turns into a definite purpose. You don't just say, I want to be rich. You say, I will earn $1 million by December 31st, 2027 by offering X service to Y people, and I will not quit until it happens. That level of specificity only emerges when the desire is no longer a preference, it becomes a mission. 2. How to know it's real. The pain of not pursuing it. You'll know your desire is genuine when it begins to feel painful not to pursue it. This is a counterintuitive but powerful test if your life feels dull, if your current work feels empty, if your conversations bore you and your environment feels like a cage. Congratulations, your spirit is revolting against stagnation. This is what Hill saw in every wealth creator. Their desire wasn't necessarily noble, clean, or even perfectly articulated. Sometimes it was born out of trauma, humiliation, or loss, but it was intense. And it made mediocrity unbearable. Desire isn't just a dream, it's a form of suffering. You suffer because you see what could be, and it clashes violently with what is. That tension creates energy, and when you channel that energy through a clear plan, that's when wealth creation begins. The anatomy of burning desire. Hill broke down desire into 6 key components, which, when working together, produce massive results. 1. Definiteness of purpose. You know what you want, in crystal clear terms. 2. Persistence. You keep moving even when there's no applause or reward. 3. Faith. You believe in the unseen long before the results show up. 4. Planning. You don't just dream, you strategize. 5. Action. You move, even when you feel unsure or afraid. 6. Imagination. You can visualize the outcome so vividly it feels real. If you start noticing these ingredients showing up in your thoughts, your language, your daily actions, you're not trying anymore. You've entered the frequency of desire that makes manifestation inevitable. You're no longer drifting, you're designing. Or why most people fear their own desire. Ironically, one of the biggest reasons people don't get wealthy is because they fear how strong their own desire actually is. Why? Because desire demands that you change. It forces you to break out of comfort zones, challenge your current relationships, face your deepest insecurities, let go of old identities, abandon excuses. So instead, they suppress it, they water it down, they mask it with distractions. They say things like, I just want to be comfortable. Money isn't everything. I don't want to be greedy. But this is fear in disguise. It's a self-imposed limitation. Napoleon Hill was adamant, desire is not greed. Desire is life force, it's divine. It's the soul reaching for a higher plane of expression. If you feel it, honor it, because it might be the clearest signal from your subconscious that you're ready to step into the next level of yourself. The link between desire and faith. Desire alone is not enough. Hill stressed that desire must be married to belief. Faith isn't religious here, it's psychological. It's the mental state where you no longer entertain the possibility of failure. You see the goal, you feel it, you speak about it, you write it down, you visualize it daily. You move through life as if it's already done. This is the engine that drives extraordinary success stories. When you have burning desire plus unshakable belief, it activates parts of the brain responsible for focus, creativity, and problem solving. The world starts to bend around your intention not because of magic, but because of neural priming. You start noticing opportunities. You take bolder actions. You stop tolerating distractions. And wealth moves closer quietly but surely. 6. Obsession versus discipline. How true desire feeds consistency. People often ask, how do I stay consistent? The truth is, you don't need to force discipline when your desire is strong enough. Discipline becomes automatic when you're obsessed. You don't have to try to work. You want to. You don't need reminders. You're already thinking about it all the time. Desire gives birth to a level of natural consistency that most people envy. But it's not willpower, it's alignment. You are in alignment with your purpose. And that purpose generates energy, which becomes momentum, which then becomes action. You're not grinding, you're being pulled by something greater than you. 7. Signs you're in the desire zone. Here are a few subtle but powerful signs you've entered the burning desire zone. You wake up with urgency, even on days off. You no longer crave mindless entertainment. It feels like a waste of time. You start investing in yourself books, courses, coaching not because someone told you to, but because you have to. You become selective with your time and conversations. You feel frustrated when you're not making progress. You see people who've achieved success and think, if they can do it, so can I. This isn't arrogance, it's emerging confidence. It's a signal that your belief system is catching up with your potential. 8. Why this is a sign you are on the path to wealth. Napoleon Hill believed that desire is the spiritual DNA of wealth. Everything else, skills, strategy, connections, flows downstream from it. So if you feel that hunger inside you, don't ignore it. Because that desire will lead you to the right people. That desire will magnetize the books you need to read. That desire will make you walk away from what's easy and toward what's right. That desire will evolve you into someone wealth is attracted to. Most people wait to feel ready before they act, but those on the path to wealth, they act while it still feels impossible because their desire won't let them quit. Part 3, your environment feels outdated, the urge to escape average. There comes a moment, often unannounced and misunderstood, when everything around you, your job, your habits, your surroundings, even some of the people in your life begins to feel too small. It's not because you've become arrogant. It's not because you think you're better than others. It's because you've outgrown the environment you once felt comfortable in. And that is a critical, often ignored sign that you're stepping into the path of wealth. Napoleon Hill called this phenomenon outgrowing your mental and social clothing. It's the invisible but undeniable urge to escape average, not out of rebellion, but out of evolution. 1. The psychological signal. A subtle shift in perception. It usually starts with restlessness, not the kind that makes you bored on a Sunday afternoon, but a deep internal unease that says, there has to be more than this. Your routines begin to feel like cages. Your conversations feel repetitive. Your workspace becomes stifling. You go to meetings and wonder why everyone's still talking about the same problems from last year. This shift in perception is not a phase. It's the beginning of a personal transformation. Hill believed that wealth-conscious individuals often go through a stage where their internal growth surpasses their external environment, but they begin to feel like giants living in miniature houses. The walls of familiarity start closing in. This is a clear psychological indicator that your mind is expanding, and when your mind expands, everything around you that remains small becomes unbearable. 2. The law of environment, you either evolve or deteriorate. One of Hill's core principles is that your environment shapes your destiny either by supporting your growth or stunting it. He famously wrote, "One may rise to the highest position in success by associating with those who demand more of you than you do of yourself." So what happens when your current environment doesn't demand more but actually demands less? It encourages you to stay safe. It rewards mediocrity. It celebrates small thinking. It punishes ambition as arrogance. You begin to feel out of place not because you've changed in a bad way, but because you've evolved past what's normal. Hill would say when your surroundings no longer reflect your future, it's time to upgrade your environment or risk being pulled backward by it. 3. The feeling of no longer belonging. This is a difficult but sacred part of the wealth journey, the realization that you no longer belong where you once felt rooted. Friends who once inspired you now drain your energy. Conversations that once fascinated you now bore you. Behaviors you once tolerated now feel toxic. At first, you might feel guilty. You'll ask, why am I growing distant from people I used to love being around? But Hill would challenge you with this idea. You are not rejecting people, you are accepting your purpose. There is a cost to rising, and that cost is often emotional distance from the familiar. The wealth journey isn't just about acquiring assets, it's about acquiring a new level of identity. That identity often cannot be fully formed in environments that demand you stay who you were. 4. Signs your environment has become a cage. Here are a few powerful signs you've outgrown your environment. You feel energetically drained after spending time in your usual circles. You hesitate to share your dreams because you know others won't understand. You start seeking solitude, not out of loneliness, but because it's where clarity lives. You catch yourself editing your ambition to avoid making others uncomfortable. You start visualizing the new lifestyle, location, or circle, even if it's still just a fantasy. These are not red flags, they're green lights. Green lights towards something greater. 5. Environment is more than location, it's mental frequency. Hill warned against thinking of environment purely in physical terms. Your environment is not just your office, your neighborhood, or your city. It's also the media you consume, the beliefs you tolerate, the conversations you engage in, the standards you accept. You can be in a luxury office and still be surrounded by poverty consciousness. Likewise, you can be in a small apartment but fill your environment with books, mentors, and energy that vibrates on the wealth frequency. The real question Hill would ask is, does your environment reinforce your future or recycle your past? 6. The wealthy create, not conform. One of the most consistent patterns Hill discovered among wealthy individuals was their refusal to adapt downward to fit in. They didn't shrink their dreams to match the room. They built new rooms. They created new tables. They set new standards and they invited others to rise with them. This is the mark of a leader, and you don't need to have millions to start thinking this way. When you find yourself questioning, why does no one else think like me? Why does this place feel smaller than it used to? Why am I the only one pushing for more? That's a sacred signal you've stopped conforming. You're becoming a creator. And creators, by nature, disrupt. They don't follow momentum, they generate it. 7. How to navigate the emotional tension. It's not easy to leave behind environments that once felt like home. Hill acknowledged the emotional toll this takes. You'll deal with loneliness, self-doubt, criticism, misunderstanding. But here's the trade-off you're choosing: legacy over comfort. You're stepping into the discomfort that comes from growth, knowing that temporary tension is the price of long-term expansion. Here's what Hill would advise. Don't argue, elevate. Don't prove yourself, improve yourself. Don't resist change, reposition yourself. You're not leaving people behind, you're stepping into a future where you lead others forward. 8. What to do when you outgrow your environment. So what now? 1. Start curating your space intentionally. Fill your environment with content, mentors, books, sounds, visuals, and routines that match your desired frequency. 2. Limit access to your energy. You don't have to cut people off harshly, but you can limit your exposure to voices that diminish your vision. Rebuild a new circle. Seek communities, masterminds, or networks where your ambition is normalized, not ridiculed. Or move in silence if needed. Hill was a big believer in maintaining privacy while executing your vision. Don't waste energy defending your journey. Let results be your explanation. Affirm your decision. Every morning, remind yourself, I am creating a life that matches my inner growth. I will not settle for what I've outgrown. This mindset alone separates the wealthy in the making from those trapped in familiar decay. Final word on this stage of the journey. If your environment is starting to feel like a mismatch, if your daily life feels too small for the dreams you're carrying, If you're craving more but feel isolated because of it, you're not crazy, you're not ungrateful, you're not arrogant. You're evolving. And in Hill's philosophy, that's one of the most powerful signs wealth is silently finding its way to you. Part 4, you start acting before feeling ready. Decision over delay. There's a particular moment on the path to wealth that doesn't come with fireworks or applause. In fact, it often feels terrifying. It's that split second when you make a decision even though you still feel uncertain, unqualified, and totally unprepared. Most people freeze in this moment, but those who are quietly stepping into the frequency of wealth, they act anyway. And that's what makes the difference. Napoleon Hill believed that decisiveness is one of the clearest, most powerful signs that a person is mentally aligned with success. In fact, in Think and Grow Rich, he made a bold claim: successful people make decisions quickly and change them slowly. Unsuccessful people make decisions slowly and change them quickly. In other words, your ability to decide swiftly, even without full clarity, is a predictor of wealth. 1. Why waiting for clarity is a trap. We've been conditioned to believe that we must feel 100% ready before we take the next big step, whether it's starting a business, investing in a new skill, walking away from a toxic job, or launching a passion project. But that moment of total clarity, it never comes. And if it does, it usually comes after the action, not before. Hill warned that the greatest enemy of decision is indecision, a subtle mental habit that keeps people trapped in analysis paralysis. They endlessly gather information, weigh options, and seek validation. But underneath it all is fear, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of loss. The wealth-minded individual does something radical. They take the leap first and trust that the wings will grow on the way down. 2. The invisible power of momentum. When you act before you're ready, you unlock one of the most underestimated forces in human psychology: momentum. Hill emphasized that action itself creates clarity. You don't need to know every step of the staircase, you just need to take the first one. Here's why acting quickly changes everything. You break the emotional inertia of fear. You generate feedback from the real world. You prove to your subconscious that you're serious. You invite opportunities that only show up after movement begins. This is why so many successful people describe their big break as something that only happened after they made a risky or uncomfortable decision. They weren't ready, but they moved. And movement attracts miracles. 3. Decisiveness is a sign of identity shift. Most people delay decisions because they're still identifying as their past selves. But when you begin making faster decisions, something fundamental has changed. You're no longer acting from your fears, you're acting from your future identity. That means you invest in yourself even if it scares you. You say yes to growth and no to comfort. You stop needing permission to move forward. Hill believed that wealth was less about strategy and more about identity alignment. When your decisions begin reflecting the person you want to become, not the person you've been, that's when money, influence, and opportunity start to show up. 4. Micro decisions versus macro excuses. One of the most dangerous patterns for people stuck in mediocrity is the habit of justifying delay. They say things like, "Now's not the right time. Let me wait until I have more money. I just need to think about it a little longer." Meanwhile, they're making hundreds of small decisions every day: to scroll instead of study, to stay silent instead of speak up, to delay instead of start. These micro decisions, repeated daily, form a wall between you and your potential. Wealth-minded individuals flip this pattern. They make fast, aligned micro decisions: to invest in the course, to ask the question, to build the landing page, to email the prospect, to say yes to opportunity. It's not magic, it's not motivation, it's mental commitment in motion. 5. Acting without full readiness builds self-trust. Another overlooked benefit of making decisions before you feel ready is this: you start building trust with yourself. Most people have fractured self-trust. They've broken so many promises to themselves that their subconscious doesn't believe them anymore. That's why goal setting feels hollow and vision boards stop working. But when you take decisive action, especially when it's uncomfortable, you send a powerful message to your inner world. I follow through. I'm not a dabbler. I move when it matters. That self-trust, multiplied over time, becomes unstoppable confidence. Not the loud, arrogant kind, but the quiet, unshakable belief that says, if I start, I'll figure it out. And that, Hill believed, is the very foundation of wealth. 6. You stop needing external validation. Another hidden shift that occurs when you begin acting before you realize it is a decrease in your need for permission. You stop asking, will people approve? Will I be liked? What will they think? Instead, you begin asking, is this aligned with my vision? Will this help me grow? What does my future self need me to do right now? This shift in questioning is everything. It's the difference between being a follower of circumstance or a creator of direction. Hill noted that the wealthiest minds are independent thinkers. They trust their gut, weigh their values, and then commit. They don't need consensus, they need conviction. 7. Wealthy people make peace with imperfection. One reason many people delay decision-making is because they're waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect plan. But wealth builders, they make peace with imperfection. They know plans will change. Mistakes are inevitable. The road will be messy. Growth is awkward. But they also know that nothing grows in hesitation. Nothing changes while you wait for the stars to align. So they act. They refine along the way. They course correct in motion. Hill wrote that action beats perfection every time, and those who wait for guarantees will forever be stuck watching others move ahead. 8. Real-life examples Hill loved to highlight. In his interviews, Hill referenced people like Henry Ford, who made a bold decision to build a new kind of car before he had the full funding or support. Thomas Edison, who made 10,000 decisions to act before he finally invented the light bulb. Andrew Carnegie, who pushed young Hill to write Think and Grow Rich even though Hill had no publisher or audience. None of these men waited until they were ready. They acted and trusted that readiness would catch up. That same spirit is alive in you, whether you've acknowledged it or not. If you're feeling the impulse to move, to start, to leap even before the plan is perfect, that's not recklessness. That's alignment. 9. How to strengthen your decision muscle. Hill didn't just talk about decisions. He prescribed ways to strengthen the habit of acting quickly. Set deadlines for every decision, even small ones. Practice saying yes to growth opportunities immediately. Eliminate the phrase, "let me think about it," from your vocabulary. Reward yourself for making decisions even if they're scary. Reflect weekly. What decisions did I delay? Why? What did it cost me? The more you train this muscle, the more natural it becomes eventually. People will call you lucky or confident, but you'll know the truth. You just stopped waiting. Conclusion of this stage. If you've recently said yes to a scary opportunity, invested in something before feeling financially ready, started a project even when unsure of the outcome, walked away from a safe job or relationship without having the next step fully figured out, then congratulations. You've crossed one of the most difficult thresholds on the path to wealth. You've chosen movement over mastery, decision over delay, commitment over comfort. And Napoleon Hill would tell you this: that one decision may matter more than 5 years of planning. Part 5, your circle gets smaller, the silent exit from negative influence. At first, it feels strange. You don't really notice it happening. It's subtle, quiet, almost unintentional. You begin texting certain people less. You stop replying to gossip threads. You feel drained after certain hangouts. You no longer seek approval from your old circle. You become selectively social, not antisocial. That's the sign. You're not becoming distant. You're becoming discerning. Napoleon Hill understood this intimately. He believed that one of the most critical, yet overlooked, Keys to wealth is the company you keep and your willingness to walk away from those who no longer match your vision. 1. Hill's warning, the influence of negative association. Hill repeatedly emphasized the destructive influence of association with negative thinkers. He wrote, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." This isn't just about habits, it's about mindset contamination. Surrounding yourself with people who complain about money, mock ambition, settle for mediocrity, resist change, blame others for their situation, will inevitably slow your progress. Why? Because proximity creates mental permission. If everyone around you tolerates average, you start believing it's okay, your standards lower, your urgency fades, your belief system contracts. But when your circle shrinks and only aligned, positive, and growth-oriented people remain, your mind expands. 2. The emotional toll of outgrowing relationships. This isn't just strategy, it's emotional warfare. Walking away from people you have known for years, maybe even decades, is difficult, especially when they haven't done anything objectively wrong. Maybe they're kind, maybe they supported you in the past, maybe they still love you. But here's the hard truth Hill would point you to. Every person who enters your life is either feeding your vision or feeding your fear. If someone constantly doubts your ideas, projects their insecurities onto your path, passively belittles your ambitions, they're costing you more than you realize. And the most dangerous negativity is the subtle kind, the kind that hides under sarcasm, jokes, or just being realistic. Hill's guidance was clear: protect your mind like a fortress. And sometimes that means loving people from a distance. Signs your circle is out of alignment. How do you know when it's time to distance yourself? Here are some common indicators. You leave interactions feeling smaller, not expanded. Your wins are met with silence or subtle jealousy. Your friends prioritize comfort over growth and pressure you to do the same. You start muting your language, dreams, or goals to blend in. You begin feeling emotionally exhausted by conversations that used to feel energizing. These are not trivial signs. They are your subconscious warning you. This environment no longer serves your future. Hill called this the law of cosmic habit force, the idea that your dominant environment programs your unconscious patterns. If your surroundings reward stagnation, you will unconsciously slow down to match it. 4. The power of solitude before the upgrade. Here's a secret most wealthy people never say out loud. The wealth journey can be lonely in the middle. There's a stage where your old circle no longer fits, but your new tribe hasn't shown up yet. It's a quiet in-between phase. You'll doubt yourself. You'll question if you're becoming too serious, too obsessed, or too different. But Hill would tell you this is sacred. Solitude is not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're shedding, and shedding always comes before shifting. Use this season to rebuild your self-concept. Devour empowering content. Visualize the tribe you want to attract. Build internal resilience without constant external noise. Because the smaller your circle becomes, the clearer your vision gets. 5. Upgrading your network with intention. Hill taught that deliberate association is one of the most powerful tools in the Wealth Builder's Toolkit. Once you've cleared space by exiting low-frequency relationships, the next move is to curate your circle. Look for people who make you feel expanded, not diminished. Talk about vision, not just problems. Celebrate your growth without envy. Challenge your thinking in constructive ways. Live with a mindset of abundance, not scarcity. These people don't need to be rich, but they should be rich in the mindset. And if you don't know anyone like that yet, start with books, podcasts, and communities that match your values. Let those influences rewire your default thoughts until the right people start entering your real-world space. 6. The energetic impact of your circle. Science backs up what Hill knew intuitively: emotions and mindsets are contagious. When you're surrounded by driven, empowered, vision-oriented people, you start setting bigger goals. You stop overthinking every risk. You become more decisive. You normalize ambition. You compress time frames. Being in a room of tenacious thinkers will do more for your confidence than reading 100 self-help books. Your environment doesn't just affect how you feel, it affects what you believe is possible. That's why when your circle gets smaller, but sharper, you often grow faster. 7. You become protective of your energy. Another sign that you're walking the wealth path is a shift in how you protect your mental energy. You stop over-explaining your dreams, justifying your ambition, arguing with people who've already made up their minds. You start saying no more often, withdrawing from drama, choosing peace over popularity, spending more time in silence, learning, creating. This isn't detachment, it's discernment. You no longer leak energy on people, situations, or ideas that don't multiply your vision. As Hill said, close the door on all past failures and limitations, and step boldly into the new world of possibilities. That door often requires walking away from people who keep trying to drag you back into the old one. 8. The wealth frequency. You become magnetic. Ironically, as you pull away from unaligned relationships, you start attracting exactly who and what you need. Mentors appear, collaborators emerge, opportunities align, conversations feel electric. Why? Because you've changed your vibrational signature. You no longer resonate with fear, drama, or distraction. You resonate with clarity, vision, and power. People feel that even if they don't know why. That's the wealth frequency, and it doesn't require millions in the bank to activate. It requires energetic integrity, the decision to prioritize your values over your need to fit in. Closing reflection for this stage. If your circle is shrinking, if you feel emotionally misaligned with people you once called friends, if you crave higher conversations, deeper thinking, and bigger dreams, you are not broken. You are becoming selective. And that is one of the rarest, most powerful signs that you're being prepared for wealth. Because wealth isn't just about what you have. It's about what you're willing to walk away from so you can become who you were meant to be. Part 6, you embrace failure differently. Mistakes become data. At a certain point on the journey toward wealth, something shifts. You stop fearing failure like it's a disease. You stop hiding from mistakes like they're shameful. Instead, you begin to study them. You look directly at what didn't work, extract insight, and move forward with more clarity than ever before. That change, subtle but radical, is one of the clearest indicators that you're stepping into the frequency of wealth. Because as Napoleon Hill explained, every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. In other words, failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of the formula. 1. Most people fear failure. Wealth builders reframe it. In mainstream thinking, failure is proof that something is wrong. You launched a product and it flopped. You're not cut out for business. You spoke in public and choked. You're not a leader. You tried a new investment and lost money. You're not good with finances. But in wealth consciousness, failure is viewed as raw data. It's the information needed to improve your strategy. Where others see failure as final, wealth-minded individuals see it as feedback. It's not I failed. It's I just discovered one more way not to do it, and now I'm closer to the right way. This reframe alone can accelerate your path faster than any course or strategy. 2. The emotion of failure begins to change. Early in the wealth journey, failure feels devastating. It bruises your ego, triggers shame, and makes you question your abilities. But once you begin aligning with Hill's wealth principles, your emotional response to failure shifts dramatically. Instead of panic, you feel curiosity. Shame, you feel resilience. Defeat, you feel recalibration. This doesn't mean failure stops hurting. It just means the hurt becomes useful. It becomes fuel. Every setback becomes a signal not to quit, but to course correct. And that emotional alchemy, that's wealth level thinking. For you, the temporary defeat principle. One of Napoleon Hill's most powerful teachings is the concept of temporary defeat. He made a distinction. Failure is what most people call it. Temporary defeat is what high achievers understand it to be. This principle is essential. Why? Because when something goes wrong in your life or business, and you label it as failure, you tend to attach identity to it. I am a failure. I'm not capable. Maybe I should give up. But when you see it as temporary, your brain stays flexible. You remain in learning mode, not shame mode. Temporary defeat tells you, this is part of the process. I'm not broken. I'm adjusting. Every wealthy person, Hill studied Carnegie, Ford, Edison embraced this mindset. They expected defeat. They planned for it. They used it. 4. Failure as an initiation. There's something almost sacred about failure at a certain level of growth. It becomes a rite of passage. Most people want success without pain. But wealth builders understand that pain introduces you to parts of yourself you can't access any other way. When you fail, your weaknesses get revealed. Your assumptions get tested. Your blind spots become visible. Your patience gets stretched. Your ego gets humbled. That's not a curse, it's an initiation. And once you've gone through a few of these cycles, something incredible happens. You start to welcome failure not because you like it, but because you trust it. 5. You stop over-identifying with outcomes. Wealth-oriented thinkers begin separating their identity from their performance. This is crucial. They don't say, I failed, so I must be a failure. They say, the launch failed. Time to analyze what happened and iterate. It's objective, clean, non-emotional. They don't collapse when they lose a deal, miss a goal, or get negative feedback. Why? Because their self-worth isn't tied to a single result. This is what Hill meant when he emphasized emotional mastery as a prerequisite to wealth. It's not just about intelligence, it's about stability. When you stop taking failure personally, your creativity explodes. Your risk tolerance increases, your fear of judgment disappears, and that's when real breakthroughs start happening. 6. Mistakes become maps. Here's how the wealthy use failure. They break it down. They identify what went wrong. Was it strategy? Timing? Communication? They remove emotion and extract data. They build a better map based on real-world feedback. This turns failure from a dead end into a GPS update. Imagine if every failed attempt was logged like a flight recorder, and with each one, your system grew smarter, your instincts sharper. That's how entrepreneurs scale faster. That's how investors recover quicker. That's how high performers learn more in 6 months than others learn in 6 years. Because they use failure as architecture, not accusation. 7. Risk becomes a tool, not a threat. Once you shift your relationship with failure, your appetite for calculated risk increases. Most people avoid risk because they have been trained to fear the pain of loss. But wealth-conscious minds see risk as a necessary element of evolution. Hill pointed out that every wealthy person he interviewed took risks not recklessly, but boldly. They made decisions with imperfect data. They tested new models. They experimented in the marketplace. Why? Because they understood this truth. The cost of never failing is often a lifetime of mediocrity. You cannot play to win and play it safe at the same time. And when you accept failure as part of the deal, you stop tiptoeing through life, you start running toward results. 8. You begin teaching others what you learned. Another subtle sign you've matured in your relationship with failure is this. You start mentoring others through their defeats. Instead of hiding your mistakes, you share the lessons. Instead of pretending to be perfect, you tell the truth. Instead of protecting your ego, you offer your scars as a roadmap. This isn't just generous, it's powerful. Because when you teach, you reinforce what you've learned. And when others succeed because you help them reframe their own failures, you expand your impact capital, something Hill valued just as much as financial wealth. 9. Failure doesn't slow you down anymore. The final sign that you're on the wealth path, failure loses its power to stop you. It might slow you, it might sting, but it no longer paralyzes you. You've trained your nervous system to respond with curiosity. You've trained your mind to seek insight, not blame. You've trained your soul to keep rising, no matter how many times you fall. That's wealth energy. It's durable. It's focused. It's unstoppable. Summary of this stage. If you've recently failed in business, lost money on a bet, pitched an idea and got rejected, tried something new and embarrassed yourself, but instead of giving up, you reflected, reframed, recommitted, then you're no longer afraid of failure. You've made the shift. You've started treating your mistakes like data, not drama. And Napoleon Hill would tell you this: you're not just on the path to wealth, you're becoming the kind of person who can handle it. Part 7. Money becomes energy. You shift from scarcity to abundance. At a certain point in your personal development journey, money stops feeling like a limited, fragile resource and starts feeling like energy, something that flows, circulates, responds to thought, intention, and value. This shift is subtle. It happens gradually, then suddenly. But when it does, it completely rewires the way you relate to wealth. Napoleon Hill saw this shift as non-negotiable on the road to success. He taught that you cannot build long-term riches with a mind trapped in scarcity. Instead, you must recondition yourself to see money not as a static object, but as spiritual currency, a reflection of value, service, and belief. 1. Scarcity thinking versus abundance consciousness. Scarcity says, there's not enough to go around. If I win, someone else loses. I have to hoard every dollar or I'll run out. Abundance says, there's more than enough for everyone. The more I grow, the more I can give. Money flows to value and I am valuable. Scarcity thinking is fear-based. It's focused on limitation, competition, and control. Abundance thinking is trust-based. It focuses on expansion, collaboration, and contribution. Hill believed that the truly wealthy didn't just have more money, they thought differently about money. They didn't chase it. They attracted it through mindset, energy, and service. 2. You stop saying, I can't afford it. One of the first signs you're entering an abundant money mindset is that you remove phrases like, I can't afford that. That's too expensive. I wish, but I don't have the money. Instead, you start asking, how can I afford that? What value can I create to make that possible? If this is important to me, how do I make it happen? This is not financial denial, it's mental alignment. Hill taught that your subconscious mind takes your statements as commands. If you say, I can't afford it, your brain stops working. But when you ask, how can I afford it? Your brain gets to work solving, creating, and expanding. This alone separates the poor in spirit from the wealthy in mind. 3. You view money as a tool, not a trophy. Scarcity thinkers see money as status. They hoard it, worship it, fear losing it. They believe money is the end goal. But wealth-aligned minds see money as a tool, a way to buy back time, increase impact, empower others, multiply opportunities. Money isn't the point. Freedom is, choices, purposes. He'll emphasize this over and over. Money is good only to the extent that it allows you the freedom to grow, give, and live with purpose. So when your focus shifts from getting money to using money well, you've entered a new realm of consciousness. 4. You're no longer triggered by other people's wealth. Another powerful sign you've transitioned from scarcity to abundance is how you react to the success of others. In scarcity, you feel jealousy, resentment, bitterness, insecurity. You see someone win and wonder, why not me? Or they don't deserve that. But in abundance, you feel inspiration, curiosity, celebration, motivation. You see someone win and think, if they can do it, so can I. Let me study how they did that. Success is proof that expansion is real. Hill taught that wealth doesn't belong to a select few. It's available to anyone who aligns with the right mindset. So if you're no longer triggered by others' prosperity, that's a massive spiritual upgrade. 5. You start circulating money with confidence. In scarcity, people fear spending. Every dollar that leaves their hands is met with stress, guilt, or second-guessing. In abundance, spending becomes intentional circulation. You invest in your growth. Tip generously without fear. Give to causes without hesitation. Spend on quality, not quantity. Feel gratitude, not anxiety. When paying bills, you understand that money flows in cycles. The more you release it with trust and purpose, the more it returns with increased energy. This is a key idea Hill emphasized. Money is shy. It only comes to those who treat it with respect, confidence, and purpose. And that respect isn't tight-fisted, it's rooted in flow. 6. You become attracted to creation, not consumption. Another sign of shifting into wealth consciousness is the desire to create value instead of endlessly consuming it. Scarcity makes you binge content, shop mindlessly, seek constant distraction, numb uncertainty with the purchases. Abundance makes you build something meaningful, launch a product or brand, offer services from your skill set, focus on value creation rather than validation. Hill wrote that wealth comes from organized effort directed toward a definite purpose. Once your mind focuses on contribution, money starts flowing in ways you never imagined. 7. Money conversations no longer feel taboo. People trapped in scarcity tend to avoid money conversations. They feel uncomfortable talking about finances, view money as dirty, evil, or shameful. Stay silent about wealth building. But abundance thinkers talk about wealth openly and wisely. Share money strategies without ego. Normalize financial literacy and empowerment. Hill believed that talking about money with clarity was essential. He didn't believe in the secrecy. He believed in strategy, intention, and transparency. The more open you are about learning, growing, and going and helping others do the same, the faster wealth becomes a natural part of your life. 8. You attract opportunities that match your frequency. Once you've shifted to abundance, strange things start to happen. A new client appears unexpectedly. Someone offers to partner or collaborate. You get introduced to a wealthy mentor. You stumble upon a book that changes your mindset. You get invited into rooms you once felt unworthy of. This isn't luck, it's energetic alignment. As Hill described it, when your mind is ready for money, it will begin to show up from directions you never expected. Wealth flows where it's welcomed, not feared, worshipped, or chased. And when you become wealth-ready in thought and vibration, the money begins to match the person you've become, not the person you were. 9. You realize that abundance is an identity, not a number. Here's the most important realization in this entire part. Abundance is who you become, not what you have. There are people with 7 figures in the bank still living in fear and scarcity. There are people just getting started who radiate abundance with every decision they make. Abundance is a mindset, a posture, a language, a level of trust in yourself and in life. And once you wear it, money becomes less of a pursuit and more of a magnet. Summary of this stage. If lately you've noticed yourself feeling less anxious around money, thinking in terms of value instead of cost, spending with intention instead of fear, investing in yourself and others generously, speaking about wealth without shame, then you've made the leap. You're no longer surviving on scraps of scarcity. You've tapped into the stream of abundance. And Napoleon Hill would tell you, you're now ready to receive money at the level of your belief, not your bank account. Part 8, your vision becomes clear. The final sign of wealth alignment. There's a moment, often quiet and deeply personal, when your future stops feeling like a distant dream and starts feeling like a clear and specific destination. You no longer just hope things will get better. You see the life you want. You feel it. You know what it looks like. sounds like, smells like. You can describe it in vivid detail. That moment of clarity, that's not just a visualization technique. It's a spiritual milestone. It's the final and perhaps most powerful sign that you're truly aligned with wealth. Napoleon Hill called this the definiteness of purpose, the ability to hold a crystal clear vision of your ideal outcome and pursue it with burning desire and unwavering faith. 1. Why clarity is the master key to wealth. In Think and Grow Rich, Hill was adamant. There is one quality which one must possess to win, and that is definiteness of purpose, the knowledge of what one wants, and a burning desire to possess it. Vague goals create vague results, but a clear, emotionally charged vision creates gravitational pull. You're no longer pushing, you're being pulled. Wealth doesn't arrive by accident, it arrives by design. And design is impossible without clarity. 2. You shift from wandering to targeting. Before vision, your life feels scattered. You try things randomly. You chase shiny objects. You bounce from one opportunity to another. You measure progress by activity, not direction. But after vision sets in, everything changes. You say no with confidence. You refine your focus daily. You choose quality over quantity. You begin to move in a straight line toward your goal. Your time, energy, and resources are no longer spent on experimentation. They're invested in execution. And this, Hill believed, is what separates the wealthy from the wishful. The successful man is the one who develops a definite plan and carries it into action with persistence. 3. Visualization becomes a daily practice. Once your vision is alive, it becomes part of your mental diet. You see your dream business running smoothly. You visualize your bank account reaching a specific number. You imagine yourself speaking on big stages, leading movements, creating impact. You rehearse the feeling of living in your dream home, working with your ideal team, enjoying freedom and fulfillment. This isn't fantasy, it's training your subconscious. Hill wrote extensively about the power of autosuggestion, the process of feeding your mind with images and affirmations that align with your definite chief aim. When you consistently visualize the outcome, your mind begins filtering for relevant opportunities, noticing resources you used to overlook, developing the courage to act boldly, making decisions from the future version of yourself, not the present one, or the shift from hustling to aligning. Before vision, you grind, you hustle, you try to force things. After vision, your energy becomes intelligent. You start working smarter, letting go of busy work, operating from trust, not tension, choosing strategic silence over reactive noise. That doesn't mean you stop working hard. It means you start working from flow, not frenzy. Hill would say that when your vision is clear, you no longer need to chase money, it begins to chase you, because your thoughts, actions, and vibration are all congruent. 5. Clarity destroys distraction. In a world of constant input notifications, opinions, offers, crises, clarity is your shield. When you know where you're going, you stop reacting to everything around you. You stop needing to prove yourself. You stop engaging in battles that don't build your future. Clarity acts like a filter. Every decision now passes through a single question. Does this move me closer to my vision? If yes, pursue it. If no, release it. This kind of mental discipline is rare, but it's also the secret to accelerated results. 6. Purpose makes pain bearable. Here's a truth Hill deeply understood. When you have a vision, pain becomes tolerable, even meaningful. Sleepless nights become stepping stones. Rejection becomes redirection. Sacrifices become sacred. You no longer feel like a victim of circumstance. You feel like a builder enduring the necessary tension required to create something exceptional. This is why people with vision don't quit easily. They're not just chasing income, they're chasing impact, freedom, legacy. And when the why is clear, the how doesn't scare you anymore. 7. People start asking you about your direction. Another sign your vision has become magnetic. People notice. They ask what you're building. They feel your conviction. They trust your leadership. They want to collaborate, invest, support. Even if you haven't made it yet, your energy communicates that you're on the way. Clarity is contagious. It inspires others to rise. And when that starts happening, you're no longer just chasing wealth, you're leading people toward it. That's the ultimate power of vision. It multiplies. 8. Your actions and beliefs sync up. Before clarity, people behave in contradiction. They say they want wealth but procrastinate daily. They talk about building a business but stay trapped in employee mindsets. They wish for freedom but choose comfort. After clarity sets in and you become integrated, your beliefs, language, habits, and environment match your vision. You wake up early with intention. Cut out wasteful spending and time. Surround yourself with those who match your values. Study obsessively, invest strategically, act consistently. This alignment becomes magnetic. You begin operating like the version of you who's already achieved the result, and the universe responds accordingly. 9. The destination becomes inevitable. When all these elements come together, burning desire, faith, definite purpose, mental clarity, emotional control, and strategic action, you enter a state Hill described as certainty. You stop wondering if it will happen. You start expecting it to happen. And when you expect it truly, deeply, it's no longer a matter of if or when. It becomes a matter of how fast. At that level of alignment, your wealth is already a reality. It just hasn't fully materialized in the physical world yet. But internally, it's done. Summary of this final stage. If recently you've noticed that your vision of the future is becoming clearer, you can describe your goals in detail. You act daily in alignment with that vision. You feel emotionally connected to your purpose. And people around you are starting to feel your momentum. Then this is the final, most powerful sign that you're on the path to wealth. You no longer live by reaction, you live by vision. You no longer hustle blindly, you execute strategically. You no longer need motivation, you operate from mission. And as Napoleon Hill would say, you've now become a magnet for the exact results you've prepared your mind to expect. You're not here by accident. If these 7 signs resonated with you, it means something inside you has already shifted. You're not behind, you're becoming. So don't stop now. Double down on your vision. Upgrade your circle. Act before you feel ready. And most of all, stay committed to your future self. Because wealth isn't waiting on luck. It's waiting on your alignment. If this message spoke to you, subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, you're already on the path. Now walk it with intention.